Recording started.
Okay, excellent. Well, looks like we've got audio, we've got video. I've got a reasonable amount of light because I've put the spotlight on in the corner over there. So honestly, my apartment is so dark. It's 11:30 in the morning. So the sun should be coming in round the corner shortly. But at the moment it hasn't really, so it's very dark in here. Even with a light on, it's quite dark. So anyway, that's by the by. It means that I have to put the spotlight on every single time I make a video. That's all it means. So it's early January. I think it's the 4th of January today. And it's 11 degrees. So 11 degrees isn't unheard of at the beginning of January. Last year was the same, I think. But that's warm. That's spring temperature in the beginning of January. So I think we might get away with not too much snow this year if the temperature is going to go up and down like that. We went from -3 to 13 degrees overnight in December when we had the snow on the ground and it was icy. We went from -3 to 13 degrees the next day, which is unreal. It's an unusual shift in temperatures, to say the least. And 11 degrees isn't bad for the beginning of January. Anyway, so my plan for January is to focus on following the money. And where that's taken me so far is to Bugsy Siegel, to Lucky Luciano, and to Meyer Lansky. Gangsters, mobsters in the 1940s, 30s, 40s, 50s mainly. So the golden age of Hollywood, Las Vegas, Miami, New York, and Havana. So it takes in the rise of Castro in Havana, the rise of Las Vegas as a gambling center, the rise of Hollywood. All of those things are included. New York as a center for trade. So the New York docks in particular, the dock workers were unionized, and the unions were controlled by the mob. So there's a connection between the mob in New York and the CIA, because they were working to keep Nazi infiltration out of the docks with the mob and the unions, and they had to during the war. So it makes logical sense that they would do that. It makes sense that they would have to do that. But that's the connection between the mob and the CIA and the FBI from the early 1940s. So from the early 1940s onwards, there's a link. There's a link into Italy with Lucky Luciano. There's the link between the Italian mafia and the Jewish mafia. And the link into Italy takes you into Austria and Switzerland, and into Germany, and into Ukraine, and into Russia via the Jewish links, the Jewish pogroms or whatever, and Jewish emigration from Russia and Eastern Europe towards the United States in the early part of the 20th century. And Italian immigrants moving in the direction of New York as well. So there's all of that. Bugsy Siegel links into the Chicago mob via Virginia Hill, who was his mistress. So there's a link into Chicago as well, and Al Capone's mob, to straight to Las Vegas and Hollywood, straight to Las Vegas and Hollywood via Virginia Hill, and straight from New York, Miami, Hollywood via Bugsy Siegel. So those connections are fairly obvious. There's a triangle. So Los Angeles, New York, Miami is a triangle. And New York, Los Angeles, Chicago is a triangle. Roughly speaking. So I'm trying to keep things simple because I want to try and be able to remember all of this stuff. And if I'm going to explain it to people, I need to be able to remember it accurately. So I have to keep it very, very simple for me. But that's where I am so far. So once you get to the part where they open the casinos in Las Vegas, then you've got Jimmy Durante involved because he opened Bugsy Siegel's hotel. You start to get Rock Hudson involved, Liberace's involved. They're connected to military intelligence into Hollywood. So there's a military intelligence connection to Los Angeles. There's a mob connection to Los Angeles from Chicago and from New York. So those are relatively easy to establish. I've got to do some work on Liberace and Rock Hudson to establish what the connections actually are, but it looks like there's a military intelligence connection there. So even if we just stick with the 40s and 50s and 60s, then Las Vegas is building, and there's apparently a connection to Meyer Lansky's hotel in Las Vegas from the CIA. So the Riviera, I think it was. So the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas was used as a safe house. It was run by the mob. So the connections start to get fairly obvious at that point, where I need to flesh out all the details of that. But the basic triangular relationships are there. So it's Hollywood military intelligence, CIA into the mob. There you go. Because the connections are there. The money, and once you've got that, you've got money moving through casinos to influence politicians. You've got money moving through casinos to influence Hollywood. There's a lot of things that can be fleshed out there. But if you don't have the basic relationships are the starting point, and that's people. The people are the starting point. There might be common philosophies behind them, but the people are the starting point. Because that's the link. That you can look at where people are and who they're doing business with and where they're spending their time, and then look at the background philosophies and the background politics of it all. So I'm gonna flesh that out over the next 2 or 3 weeks, over January maybe, and see where we get to. But I'm gonna try and get as much detail into the Hollywood, Las Vegas, Miami, New York, Chicago connections as possible. All right, that's it. That's it for now. That's what I wanted to say. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you a bit later.